Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always. What are we digging into today?
Today we're tackling the Athene AccuMax 7 Fixed Indexed Annuity using some marketing material from Diversified Insurance Brokers. Sounds pretty dry, right?
Maybe. But annuities are super important, especially for retirement planning. So let's make it interesting.
Deal. We'll break down the key features and help you decide if this kind of annuity is right for you.
Sounds good.
This annuity claims to offer market participation with downside protection.
Which, let me tell you, sounds pretty darn appealing. Who wouldn't want a piece of the market's upside without the risk of losing your shirt?
Exactly. Plus, there's some interesting stuff about the death benefit and how flexible this annuity is supposed to be.
All right, I'm intrigued. Let's start with the basics. For those who are new to this, what exactly is a fixed indexed annuity?
Think of it like a hybrid car.
A hybrid car.
Yeah, it takes the best of both worlds, like combining a gas engine with an electric motor to save fuel and reduce emissions.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
A fixed indexed annuity tries to do the same thing with your money. It aims to give you the stability of a savings account.
Where your principal is protected.
Right. But also with the potential for higher returns that you might see in the stock market.
Makes sense. So it's like a compromise between playing it safe and chasing bigger gains.
Exactly. And Athene AccuMax 7 really highlights this whole best of both worlds idea.
Yeah.
They push the guarantees and the stability it offers.
But they're not just promising some vague returns. They actually link your potential return to specific market indices, not just the typical S&P 500.
Right.
They're also using the AI-powered multi-asset index and the Shiller-Barclays KEPI Allocator 6 index. Ever heard of those?
Honestly, not really. And I bet a lot of our listeners haven't either. So how about we unpack those indices and explain how they actually protect you if the market tanks?
Sure. Let's imagine for a second that the market takes a nosedive. Your return is still calculated based on the index's performance, but there's this built-in floor.
A floor, like a safety net.
Exactly. It's a safety net that prevents your account from going into the negative. So even if the market goes down, you won't lose your principal. You're protected.
Okay, so the downside is limited. But what about the upside? If the market goes up, do I get to ride that wave all the way?
You do capture some of that growth, absolutely. But here's where those participation rates come in.
Participation rates.
Basically, it means your return isn't a one-to-one reflection of the index's gains. The participation rate sets a percentage that determines how much of that index growth is actually credited to your account.
So there's a bit of a trade-off there.
There is. And then you've also got the choice between point-to-point and annual sum crediting methods, which can affect how those returns are calculated.
Okay, so break those down for me. What's the difference between point-to-point and annual sum? And which one is better?
Well, with point-to-point, they're looking at the change in the index over a specific time period, usually a year.
So if the index goes up over that year,
You get credited with a portion of that gain based on the participation rate.
got it. And what about annual sum? How's that different?
Annual sum looks at the total growth over the year, adding up all the positive changes.
Even if there were some dips along the way.
Exactly. So even if the index went up and down throughout the year, as long as it ends up higher than it started, you'll get a positive return.
So it sounds like point-to-point could potentially give you higher returns if the market steadily climbs upward. But annual sum might be a safer bet if you're concerned about volatility.
You nailed it. It all boils down to your risk tolerance and what you think the market is going to do.
Right. It's all about what makes you feel comfortable. Now, annuities aren't usually associated with death benefits, but Athene AccuMax 7 seems to have a different approach.
It does. With a traditional annuity, your beneficiaries typically receive the accumulated value you've built up, right?
Right.
But AccuMax 7 goes a step further. Your beneficiaries also get a piece of the index growth.
Whoa, really? From the entire time you had the annuity?
Well, from the current crediting period. But still, it's like adding an extra layer of potential growth to your legacy.
That is pretty cool. I mean, it's not just about securing your own retirement income anymore. It's about potentially leaving a little something extra for your loved ones, too.
Exactly. But, life is full of surprises. What if you need to access your money before retirement?
That's a good point. What happens then? Are you locked in?
Not necessarily. With Athene AccuMax 7, you actually have some flexibility.
Oh, good. Tell me more about that.
After the first year, you can withdraw up to 10% of your contract value annually without a penalty.
Penalty-free. That's pretty generous.
It is. And they've also got some built-in safety nets, like waivers for nursing home care or if you're diagnosed with a terminal
Those
illness.
waivers definitely give you some peace of mind.
They do. But there's also this thing called a market value adjustment, or MVA.
MVA.
Yeah, and it might sound a little confusing, but it's actually pretty straightforward. If you decide to withdraw more than that allowed 10%, or you do it before a certain time period,
There's a penalty.
well, not exactly a penalty, it's an adjustment. They adjust your withdrawal amount to reflect the current interest rates.
Ah, I see. So it's a way to make sure everything stays fair for both you and the insurance company.
Exactly. Now, let's zoom out for a sec and think about how this annuity fits into the bigger picture of estate planning.
All right, let's do it. What are the advantages here?
Well, for starters, when the death benefit is paid out, it's the full accumulated value.
No surrender penalties?
None. And here's another big one. You have the option to convert the annuity into guaranteed lifetime income.
Oh, wow. So you could set yourself up with a steady stream of payments throughout retirement.
Exactly. No more worries about outliving your savings.
That's huge. Now, we have to be transparent with our listeners. All of this information is coming from Diversified Insurance Brokers.
Who are, of course, promoting this annuity.
Right. So keep in mind, this is just one perspective. Always do your own research and consider talking to an independent financial advisor to see if this annuity actually aligns with your personal goals.
Couldn't agree more.
So, just to recap, the Athene AccuMax 7 offers market participation with downside protection, plus some unique features like an enhanced death benefit and those flexible withdrawal options.
But here's the million-dollar question.
Give me with it.
Knowing the trade-offs between potential growth and guaranteed protection, what are your priorities when it comes to retirement income?
That's the big question, isn't it? What level of risk are you truly comfortable with? And how do you envision your retirement? Hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to think about and maybe even spark some questions to take to a financial advisor.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.